Okay, hello. And to anyone who's watching, welcome to my first broadcast on Google Plus Hangouts Live. And here we go. So I'm going to share my screen. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to do a little bit of painting. I've prepared a little sketch. And we're going to do that for about half an hour. And then if someone has given me a link to an image I can critique, then I will go to that. We have one person, and if there are others, then I will pick one of them at random. So for now, let's carry on with this one. So I'm choosing Humphrey Bogart. Just a random choice because I haven't done a black and white painting for a while. I fancied doing one. So I've got two layers here. The first layer I actually did like a wash, because what I want to do with digital painting is I try and recreate traditional painting as much as I can, because I love painting with oils, and when I paint digitally, sometimes I miss having that texture and that sort of touchability and the feel of real paint. So, you know, I try and look for texture as much as I can, and if I'm not using texture, then I try and use the strokes to create texture, which you can do as well. So, so I'll use my brushes here, and I'll go to texture, and there's plenty of canvas textures here. At the moment, I'm using a let's center that on there so you can see it. It's not going to show up. Extra heavy canvas, and you can control the depth. So I'll normally start with a halfway depth, and it has a really nice feel. The brush I'm using is one of the spatter brushes. I've been using those for quite a long time, and I don't tend to use many other brushes. I tend to stick to that one and then just vary the textures and the shape dynamics on the one brush. So then it's more about what you're actually painting, and you're not sort of focusing all the time on what brush you're using. So okay, I'm going to get started. So I've got two layers. I've got a pencil sketch I did, which I've overlaid on top using multiply. And you know, if I was painting traditionally, I would do like a burnt umber wash with thin oil paints, just to tone the canvas a little bit, just so you haven't got a white background, just to knock out that stark white canvas. So I'm just going to start painting with the black and white. So I'm going to get up closer to the painting so you can see the brush strokes. Nice, nice texture. There you go. But I won't start that close. I tend to stay further away. And then just start blocking in. And it really doesn't matter how you start, as long as you you follow the forms. So you know, I'm following the forms of his cheekbone coming down here. And I just realized that I'm painting on top of the multiply layer, which is not good. So what I'm going to do is flatten. I knew there wasn't something quite right. There you go, that's better. So now I've got more paint going on there, even though it's digital paint. And I keep the opacity fairly high, and I've started using keyboard shortcuts as well to change the opacity. So I can do like number 2 goes down to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and so on. Or if you do it quickly, then it's 57, 58, and so on. So we'll keep it at 60. It's a really good, quick way of changing the opacity. And I try not to go to a small brush too soon. I'll try and stick with a fairly large brush. And I don't know how much I'm going to get done in half an hour, but we'll see how we go. It's a shame I can't actually check if anyone's leaving any comments. There must be a way of setting it up so I can see the comments as I sketch or paint. I'll have to figure that out for next time, probably. This is my first time, so it's a learning curve. So not worrying about detail at all at the moment. Just worrying about the forms and not even worrying about likeness yet. And depending on how far I get with this today, you might see me reducing the texture as I go. So I'll gradually reduce the depth of the texture, providing on how much detail I want to put in. Reduce the brush a little bit just to find the nose a bit more. I think it's in the sketch. The bridge is slightly too high. And I'm avoiding going too dark at the moment, or going too... I'll try and avoid black altogether if I can. I think it's more about keeping your value range as tight as you can. So, avoiding pure black and pure white. And there are some browns creeping in there, so I'm going to start using the color picker more. Let's put that over there. All right, I'm going to start to speed it up a bit now. very rarely do I use use the undo like I did just then, which is a Control Z. Mainly because I'm still trying to recreate the the experience of painting traditionally. So I want to try and stay as faithful to that process as I can. I think there isn't a delete option with oils or acrylics. So I think it's a good discipline to have. And sometimes, if you make a mistake, it can help the piece as well. You can do something that actually looks better, and it kind of frees you up to not worry so much about making mistakes, and you end up incorporating those into your painting. So I think in that way, digital painting can be used as a crutch to avoid making mistakes all the time, and that's not what it's about. I was debating whether to put a background in here. I think I will. Because I like the brown. I might kind of leave the brown showing through a bit, or the burnt umber, if you like. I like to keep it sketchy as well sometimes, just yeah. And the hands, I was going to, at first I thought, okay, let's paint both the hands, but then I was looking at the, what narrative I wanted to say with, what did I want to say with it? And I kind of like the way he's holding the cigarette between those fingers, and the smoke coming up there. I think it's quite expressive. So I'm twisting the hand round a bit, and I'm going to bring this finger up here a little bit more, probably to about there, so that he's taking a drag from the cigarette, or he's about to take a drag from the cigarette. Kind of changes the meaning behind the piece, because here I think he's applauding someone, or it looks like he's applauding someone. It's not really very clear. So I think taking the other hand away and just having one kind of adds something. needs to get darker. I really like the feel of this this brush with the texture, with the canvas texture. Sometimes I just like to. It kind of feels more than any other brush I've used that I'm actually painting with real paint. I think otherwise, if I didn't have that experience, then I just wouldn't bother painting digitally. I'd just paint with oils all the time. So obviously this is very early days, and I'm only going to have time to literally block in kind of a most of the finished piece. Yep, used undo there, naughty. I think it's important to be strict with yourself. And just be honest about your process. And I think if you're honest about your process, then it comes through, and it forces you to work harder as well, because it's easy to kind of give up and just sort of call something finished before you've actually finished it. And the end of that thumb. So need a smaller brush for that. So I don't want to get that thumb too close to his chin. I'm going to try to avoid a tangent. So just close enough so it's almost touching. Okay, I think it's going to be time in a minute to do a critique and see if we've got some volunteers. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And let's have a look. What's this? Oh. Okay. Okay, so did anyone leave a comment in here? I struggle to do well the values you consider key points to improve. Not sure about the question you're asking there. I mean, values, they're really important. So yeah, we're going to do this now. So I think I've mentioned values. I'll talk about values again another time. Let's have a look. Oprah. Actually, no, let's do it this way. Okay. Okay. Right. So I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. So I'm not sure whose work I'm critiquing here. Ferm, F-E-R-M. Okay. I think it's a good likeness. The things I would look at if I was going to start this from scratch would be changing the angle of the head, because I think the expression gets lost a little bit because the if I show you by, let's take my texture off, change my brush. Okay. So if you look at the angle of her head, so the first thing I look for in doing any piece is how the head is resting on the neck, and then how the eyes, how that affects the eyes, because we're drawing a skull that's resting on top of a skeleton. We're not just drawing a set of eyes that are not connected to anything, or a set of teeth that aren't connected to anything. There's a structure underneath. that we have to adhere to. So how the head rests on the neck affects everything else. Where the cheekbones are. So, and everything, the eyes, the teeth, usually the bottom of the nose as well, is always in parallel with each other and the cheekbones. So where we position the eyes and where we position the teeth and all of these features depend completely on the angle or the pose of the head and how it's resting on the neck. So if we bring that over to the drawing, it's straight. It goes straight down. So when you're drawing it, you're looking at this and trying to force things in the wrong direction. So she's kind of lifting her head backwards a little bit as well. So rather than sort of spend a lot of time changing the rendering or looking at the values on this piece, first we need to look at the sketch and how good the sketch is. So, and there would be no point in just sort of getting the transform tool, doing something like this, and then tilting it like that, because, well, you could start off doing that, but then all of the features would have to be moved as well. So sometimes it's better to look at your piece and think, okay, that's I can move on from that, and let's try again and do another sketch. And you know, there's been many times where I've painted something, and especially when I was learning, and I would start rendering, and I would render to a finish, and it would always be an uphill struggle. And you can always tell when something is something's not quite right. And if you're struggling with something, then it means that your sketch needs work. It doesn't mean your rendering needs work. It means your sketch needs work. So it's always a sign that you've got to go back to the sketch, or do some more sketches, or do some thumbnails. So if I was going to do a thumbnail from this piece, from this reference rather, hold on, get rid of these. A minute, there was a quicker way of doing that. Never mind. There you go. So if I was going to do a thumbnail sketch of that one, so we do the hair. Change the opacity a bit. I would try and figure out where the neck is. And to be honest, I wouldn't really choose this reference. I don't think it's the best expression. And there's also something to be said for asymmetry. So most faces aren't symmetrical. You know, if you draw a line down the center, someone's smile will be, this side will be slightly further over that side, and this one not so much. And this cheek will come out more and that one not so much. So, we've always got to be looking out for those asymmetrical imbalances, should we say. And in most cases, most people have those imbalances. And I would probably let the mouth take up more of the space as well, in terms of exaggeration. And to be perfectly honest, I don't always sketch in Photoshop. I prefer to sketch in pencil and then scan it. But for the purpose of demonstrations, I'm going to do it for now. And the chin is kind of coming out to the side slightly as well. We go. So, like I said, I wouldn't. I'm trying to do a thumbnail from this reference, or a reference that I wouldn't normally choose, mainly because it's even the way her head is tilted back slightly. It seems unnatural. She seems kind of tense, and it kind of makes me feel tense while drawing it. So, I would, choosing references is the biggest hurdle to overcome. It's the first thing you do before you draw. Well, the first thing you do before you draw is think about it. So you think, how do I want to draw this person? What is it about this person that I find funny, or what is it about this person that makes me think, or what story do I want to tell about this person? So all those questions go through my head before I put any pencil to paper, or even look for any reference. So I'll do a Google search for them. I'll look on YouTube and watch interviews, and if I know the person already, then I don't need to do as much of that. That's only if you're not too familiar with the person. But if you know them well, then sometimes you can just go straight to a reference and bang on it, and you hit it first time. So there you go. So I'm not going to take this one too far. Just a reminder, if anyone's thinking about taking my course, it's a 9-week course. So you'll have 9 assignments, 9 critiques, and you can choose, if you're doing either the beginner or intermediate, you can choose to have Game of Thrones assignments. So if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you can paint the characters and get critiqued on those. Or you can do the assignments that I've had going for a few years. So it's entirely your choice. And also, if you are thinking of taking the course, I do like to see hard work. So, you know, I don't let you slack off. So, you know, be prepared to do lots of work. And have fun as well. You know, if you're not having fun with something, then you're doing it wrong. So it's got to be fun. And normally critiques will be via WebEx. So they won't be on Google, they'll be on WebEx, and it'll be a 2-way conversation. So you'll be able to interact with me the whole time. And I'll give you, it'll normally be around an hour. So you'll get a whole hour to ask me questions and you know, pick my brains and get a good critique. Yeah, and I'm here to help. So, you know, that's, I'm not going to take that much further. I could play around with that for ages, but let's go back and look at this piece in terms of values. So I think with the rendering, the main issue for me is what I was saying earlier in the broadcast, is that digital. The problem with digital is that there's no texture, and that I miss the texture of real paints. So when we use digital, we can lose texture really quickly, because, you know, if you think about it, we're starting with a blank file. There's absolutely no texture. You could zoom in forever and never find any texture. So we have to create that constantly. So that's one of the things. And the other main thing with any painting is focus on edges. So, you know, watching out for having too many sharp edges. So look at this edge here. You know, just soften the edges, because hard edges kind of stop the eye. So when we're looking around a painting, actually, let's go back to the beginning like that. If we're looking around this painting, our eyes get drawn to anything that's sharp. So that edge there goes from light to dark really quickly, and it's going to catch the eye. So, and if you have too many of those, then it's the eye is going to be confused and not know where to go. And so, what's more pleasing is to just soften those edges, and the same here. So, you can do that with a larger brush, but you can also do it in the rendering. So if you go closer, and it's it's about looking at values as well. So that value range that I was talking about before implies if you've got complete black, so you've got full black and then full white. If you have too many of those too close together, then you're not going to have too many sharp edges. So for instance, your highlights here, you've got lots of bright highlights and lots of blacks, and it could all be softened. And okay, let's show you again. So you've got black and then white, and then you've got everything in between. So you've got all the way to black. So the full value range, instead of having it going from there to there, try having it going from there to there, for instance. I hope that makes sense. So it's just about reducing those values down a bit, and especially around the eyes as well. So and also the shape of the eyes, I'm not sure that's working, but that's all connected with the structure. So if you did the structure from scratch, then that would change everything that you've done with the rest of the features. It's amazing the choices, the way your choices change if you change the initial structure, and what it does inside your brain as you're working. So it all comes from the sketch. If you get a good sketch, you've done most of your work already. And also, with if the sketch isn't quite there, you tend to get too faithful with the reference, and that can also lead to problems. So, that's it really, just softening edges and having a good sketch. Okay, so I'm not going to do much more of that. So I hope that's helped. I hope that's clear. If you've got any questions, then let me know. I'm just I'll show you something I've been working on, or shall I? No, let's carry on with Bogart. Okay, I'm just going to do a bit more to Bogart, and then we'll finish off. Just a few more things. One thing I do quite a lot, especially when I'm doing the initial render or the initial blocking in, is squint. So I think squinting is very important to kind of blur out the values so you see the bigger shapes. So I recommend squinting. And also when you're doing the initial sketch, to get the exaggeration and find those bigger shapes. So, we're coming up to end of the broadcast. And I think for next week, if to speed things up a bit, if someone wants a critique, then it's probably better to leave the link on my Facebook page rather than having to look for it during the broadcast. And I think that's it. So we've got a couple of minutes. So yeah, if you're interested in taking the course, you go to paulmoyes.com/courses, or just go to paulmoyes.com and follow the link to the courses, and take a look. And if you've got any questions, let me know. Always happy to answer questions. It's a bit darker. Okay, so time's up, and hope you enjoyed that one. I'm going to carry on with this one and see how far I can take it. and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you tune in again next week. Thanks very much.